we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I have a motion to accept or call to order. Okay.
Did you do roll call, Brian?
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. I'll get this in.
Follow the paper. Follow the paper.
You're right. Roll call,
Sharon Price.
Brian Muldorf.
Shelley Shipley.
There is no audience participation.
Yes, no audience participation. Gotcha. All right, then I need a motion to approve the minutes from the 8/31/21 meeting.
All motion to approve.
Second that.
That was Sharon motion to approve and Shelley seconded.
Shelley second. All right. Then
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And then now we're gonna move down to follow up on the Parks and Rec and seniors fitness and golf requests. Any follow up or anything on that?
Right, so this was just if you guys have any questions as you digested all the information from last week that you wanted me to follow up with. I know that Jen Bettinson, Parks and Rec, she put together the like annual earnings from Rock the Park that you guys were looking for the past few years. So she's working on that. She sent me a little draft, so she should have that out to you this week.
Okay.
I think the only question I had was more of a general question.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but last year I thought you gave us where we needed to be, what the
Right.
requests were versus where we needed to be. Is that coming like after all the requests are submitted?
We'll probably have something like that when I get to next week because of the infrastructure discussion and how we might be able to pay for some of those projects. So that, you know, how much do we need to cut discussion? Usually I have it up front by now, but we actually still even have a couple budget meetings left to hold. One of them being with Public Works, who's scheduled for next week, and theirs is always a big ask. It's about $1 million. So I just don't have quite that number just yet.
Okay. I was like, I thought she used to give it to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could make it.
They asked for $10 million. You've got 3. Yeah, that number? Yeah. Yeah, we haven't gotten there just yet, but hopefully next week.
Hey, Brian, just a heads up. Shannon asked that everybody speak into their mics because I guess she was having a hard time. Did she mention it to you? Hearing the minutes.
Becky does the minutes for us, and
think-
she seemed okay from last time.
Was she okay? Shannon mentioned it to me, so I don't know.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have a green light on.
This one does.
Oh, I got it. Okay, I turned it on. Is that better?
There you go.
It wasn't turned on when I got here.
Oh, sorry. Well,
That's
hopefully-
okay. No
probably
problem.
one of the other mics would have picked you up.
Yep. All right. I was just looking around. I saw the green lights.
What about that one staying up?
The one on the stand is probably usually the one on the podium.
Gotcha. Okay.
Have a mic
Motion
to
to
speak
approve the
either.
minutes, right?
Oh. They don't have a mic.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that one working? Sarah?
Yeah, that one's on.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion to approve the minutes then?
Oh, we
Yeah.
We did the minutes.
Okay.
Did you do that?
Did the minutes. All right.
did the follow-up on the rec,
Yep.
Yep.
and now we're to the,
Department heads.
Okay. So on your packet there in front of you, I sent you a copy of the presentation at the end of last week. Those first probably 4 or 5 slides were just repeats of what we went over last week, the summary pages. So I didn't print those out for you again. So the first page we've got here is that police and fire levy fund. I just wanted to take a quick minute, since we're talking about police fire dispatch tonight, to talk about that levy that was approved last year. Well, yeah, last year. This year. Was this year too this year? That was this year. Boy, this pandemic is throwing me off.
Yeah.
Anywho, so that money will start being collected in 2022. It'll be on the property tax bills that go out next year. So a portion of that police and fire levy fund is slated for capital purchases for police fire dispatches and included in police. So that's where they're here tonight as well.
Okay.
The full 2.4 mils that was approved by the voters is about $1.7 million. Of that $1.7 million, about $700,000 of that is slated for capital purchases for safety services. And you'll see from the summary pages, I know you might not have it in front of you from last week, but the police, fire, and dispatch capital requests initially were a little bit over $1 million. But I think as we talk through tonight, we have a few things that will probably either be lowered, we have financing plans, or we'd be put on hold to get us down around that number.
Okay.
Okay. So any questions on the police and fire levy fund?
No, it looks good to me.
Okay. All right, so first up, we have Chrissy Yakupovich. She runs dispatch, and she's here to talk about the 911 system request that they have. If you want to come on up here, because I don't know, or we can roll the podium out if you want a podium. IT was off today, so. Want to get Rob to help Bill on it. Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
boy.
jeez.
Oh, boy.
That's a fire hazard.
Okay, well, this is low voltage, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like that's my eye. Hello.
So,
Hi.
Hello.
I am going to approach you, give you some pictures that we've taken of our current phone system. So just different views of the different modules of the phone system to share.
okay. Thank you. Our communications center will be 6 years old in October. Our current phone system is, the maintenance agreement is over. The touch screens are no longer as sensitive. We've had some issues with replacing the fans in the server. The operating system is obsolete and the software is no longer supported. In order to maintain our status as a primary PSAP, we have to be in compliance with certain things for the state and county. We need to upgrade our phone system. And this upgrading our phone system will create different things. We are looking to move to a hosted phone system. We are now currently premise-based. Premise-based phone system meaning that we house all the equipment here and we are responsible for all of the maintenance and updates and monitoring of that system. Moving to a hosted system will allow us to be monitored 24/7 off-site. We won't have to store the equipment on-site, and any updates will be pushed out readily. Being on a hosted system, we'll be on there with several different agencies, so AT&T or Vesta can push out the updates at one time so everybody receives them all together. Also, on being on a hosted system, we will be able to have more interoperability with our surrounding communities. Currently, most of our county is moving to the hosted system, if not already there. Other agencies are moving to the Vesta system. Currently, we are on Viper. Viper's the name of the phone system?
Yes, that's what we're on currently. Viper, Westcom, they go by a couple of different names. And we're premise-based currently. We have been working with Macedonia. One of the things, as I talked about, and being in compliance with the state, is we have to have evacuation plans and so forth. So if something should happen to our center, we have some place to go. So we have been working with Macedonia. We have purchased a multi-agency CAD so that we are able to, help them. If their station should go down, they could evacuate here. and be able to run the CAD system as they would be in their own station. They have migrated to the 800 radio system to be with us because we've been on 800 radio system. They are currently on the Vesta. While they are premise-based at this time, and I'm looking more into whether they would be able to host us, but they've already been on that system for a couple of years, and unfortunately, the systems only last about 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. So with a couple years in, and after speaking with AT&T the other day, they said that they might be able to roll their monies in that they have vested now in order to maybe so they can go be hosted so that we could have interoperability. And for that, that would mean for us that any agency that is on the hosted Vesta, that we could leave our station and go there, log in with our credentials, and be able to take Twinsburg calls. Mm-hmm. So therefore, any sort of blip would be seamless. You know, they might be even able to have like a login credential that's generic so that they can start taking the calls while we are en route to man.
Mm-hmm. That was going to be my next question. How do you do that? So I used to be in IT. I did hosted voice systems and things like that. So have we looked at any other cities that are using Vesta and how they're using it, what their thoughts were, you know, as far as what works, what doesn't work?
Well, right now, it's the county, a lot of them are coming to a COG, Sheriff's Office, Cuyahoga Falls, Stowe, so they're kind of working on some of that right now. Hudson and Bath are currently sharing the Vesta system, and that's new as of this year.
Okay.
So far it seems to be okay.
Who else was sharing with Bath?
Hudson.
How many can share a system?
Well, the most of the county can be on that system.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there'll be 2, and I'm not sure statewide. I know that there will be 2 different sites that will hold the equipment in case one site gets taken out, which will be Kent and Dublin, so that they're far enough away that if something should happen, that, you know, if Kent's out, then the Dublin still stands.
Is there would there be a maintenance fee as
Not
part
with
of
the
this?
hosted. With premise-based currently, we pay a maintenance fee, which our maintenance agreement is out. Currently, they're about 60 months, the
Okay.
maintenance agreements. There will not be a maintenance fee on the hosted system.
There'll just be a monthly charge.
Monthly charge.
Monthly charge takes care of all replacements,
Correct.
maintenance, everything else.
Absolutely.
Now, there's also, is a licensing fees and everything included in here? Because I would imagine there would have to be licensing fees for, you know, as many people that are going to migrate system to system should it need be.
As far as I know, what he gave me as far as price point, which was monthly cost for 60 months was $1,000 per position. We have 4 positions, so that'd be $4,000 a month, that it seemed like it was taking care of it.
I love the hosted voice system. I'm very familiar with the premise systems, and I do know how they go out. I would just say that with the cloud systems, they're fantastic, but I would look, if you're going to be researching any of this, that you dig deeper into the licensing and what's included with the licenses.
Okay.
And so the $275,000 that she has on there right now, that's gonna be broken up over the years. So that's one of the things that when we talked about, you know, we can get that $1 million number of the initial request down. This $275,000, the option she's looking at now is about $240,000, but spread over the course of 5 years.
Okay.
So it really drops that annual fee a little under $50,000. So
Okay.
we'll go from $275 on this request down to probably a little under 50. But there's a little more research that's being done to make sure we get the best possible option.
Yeah.
And when she said the maintenance agreement on the current system is going to go out, they're no longer supporting our system, is what's about to happen. So we have to do something. And I think this hosted option that Chrissy's been working on is a good option based on that information.
I would agree.
we're
I mean,
gathering.
that's the way everybody's going. I mean,
Yeah, and we talked to the guy that runs IT today, and you know, he said will help him sleep a little better at night, knowing that should something happen, there's a whole team of people out there to fix the system, as opposed to our in-house IT guy trying to figure it out.
And then that 45K, should it come down to it after you research licensing and stuff like that, does that price include like the deployment and installation and setup and configuration of all the phones and the system and everything like that?
I do believe so. But I will definitely confirm that.
And training as well. Training would
Yes.
obviously come with that too. Okay.
So Sarah, did you say the 275 would be paid over 5 years?
So the system that she's looking at, the hosted system, if that's the one we go with, that monthly fee, that $4,000 monthly fee or thereabouts, that will be the payment. It won't be $275,000 up front.
At one time.
We'll pay it over time.
So is it like we're leasing it until we own it?
We do not own it.
Yeah, it's not so much a lease to own as it is we're
Oh, we won't?
Participating.
We are using
Right,
their
we're
we are
buying
using
into
their
the system.
services.
Oh, so we'll never own it?
No.
We'll never own it?
We won't own it. I
It'll
asked
be
this-
hosted. All that stuff's going to be in the cloud. So their servers that they're running all the software and everything will be in the cloud. There'll be no on-premise equipment, correct, except for your
Correct.
phones.
Correct.
physical
So
things
all the
either.
servers and everything are hosted in their cloud, and then they automatically do upgrades to the
So
service.
the hardware we'll see will be the phones that are in the dispatch center.
If I'm understanding that correctly, the only hardware we'll see
will
is
be in the
the,
dispatch center.
Yep.
I did confirm with Paul, is the person I've been talking to at AT&T, and he said that after the 60 months, you would either extend the contract or seek an alternative solution, in which case we would remove our equipment at the end of that.
Which would be their phones and whatever's in the dispatch physically. Okay.
And the 5-year life cycle of the agreement that she's looking at for the hosted is about the lifetime of the system itself. So
and what comes with one of the phones? I mean, it's not just a phone. I see you sent pictures here integrated in with the computers. Does it come with computers as well with the phones, or how does it work?
The phone is like a computer,
Mhm.
is what it is essentially.
Okay.
So it has its own tower and everything else.
Oh, I see. Okay. So the phone has its own tower, and I see that it pulls up all the resident information and everything like that.
Right.
But it gets all the data, and the phone calls come from the cloud over the network.
Right, but currently we have what's called on the Viper system, a MIS, Management Information System, is where we pull a lot of our data to report to the county and state. They are looking into how we will be able to extract that data migrating over to Avesta.
Okay. Yeah, so again, the only thing I would say is that when you're looking at it, just look a little bit into licensing. Licensing is going to be important to find out what exactly you get with the system or what's extra. Because they'll give you a base price for a really good system, but then you want to do reporting and things like that, and that'll be another check mark or something like that. So I would just look into licensing. That would
I
be
will
all I'd
confirm
recommend.
those other things as well with them.
good questions, and I can bring that back to you next week or the week after, depending on how long it takes to get an answer back.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Chrissy on the 911 system?
I think it's great. Thank you.
No, it sounds good. Sounds like it protects the citizens more if you're able to connect with other cities and transfer if you have an evacuation.
Absolutely. Like I said, we do need to have an evacuation
Right.
plan, and you want that to be as seamless as possible. And maintaining our equipment allows us to be a primary PSAP. There's primary and secondary PSAP, which is public service answering point. If we are not a primary PSAP, that would mean that our 911 calls would go off to some other agency to be answered, for them to say, okay, what city, and then they would transfer them to us, which would, delay
Like a
in getting help.
middleman. Yep.
Right. All set?
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chrissy.
Chrissy.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chrissy. So next up, we have Chief Mason to talk about the police department's requests. I do want to point out, you've already seen the second year of the lease for the Detective Bureau vehicles, and we have that year 3 payment of the cruisers. So Chief Mason will go over the other items, but those are the lease payments that we're already committed to. The Detective Bureau vehicles are true leases. We turn those vehicles in every 2 years to keep those vehicles fresh. The cruiser lease payment, our last payment, we own the cruisers.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hello?
How you doing?
So, to build on what Sarah said, the Detective Bureau, or Bureau lease vehicles, as she explained, we do turn those over every 2 years for a variety of reasons, and it gives our cars a different look, gives our detectives a different car. It's just good practice. And those are staggered. We do 2 1 year, 2 the other, and you can see we're asking for a third. And the reason for that is in anticipation of expanding the Bureau. And at the very least, it would be used for detective, Bureau Lieutenant or Supervisor. So it is needed. The rates are roughly the same per vehicle. We deal with a dealership out of Canton that takes pretty good care of us. So it's worked out well over the last few years. So that's why there's a third vehicle built into that. The live traffic camera system. As you can see, $32,000 is asked for. Chief Noga had started looking into that last year. And that was basically, off of his notes, the infrastructure to develop a citywide wireless camera video system, initially to monitor several major intersections in real time. That system is expandable for monitoring additional locations such as city parks. So what I'm looking at is something a little different. It's along the same lines, it's different. I feel it's much better. It's better for our city. So while Chief Noga was initially looking at a fixed camera at some strategic locations throughout the city, I'm looking at something called, well, an example of it, the leader in the field is called Flock Video Systems. I don't have anything to show you, but it's a small camera. It's typically mounted at the entry points to the city. And you use as many, we can have as many as we want. We could just hit the major entries. We could hit every point of entry in our city. We could hit every residential area. It's expandable. Basically what these cameras are what's called a license plate reader. It's not a license plate reader in the sense of it just sits there and reads plates. It does, but it does so much more. So back to the camera itself. It's a small camera. It's typically mounted on like a mast arm or a traffic signal somewhere in the city. Our city electrician will tie it into the power. That's the only thing they don't do. They install it. We actually just hook it up. If it's somewhere that doesn't have power accessible to it, they can run it as solar. Same price. So these cameras, the breakdown on these cameras is $2,500 per camera per year. All right. The nice thing about the camera is that fee covers the equipment, the warranty, the storage. We wouldn't house, much like what Chrissy was talking about, we wouldn't house much hardware here, just those cameras. Everything is cloud-based. They maintain and control everything, storage, everything. So that's really good for us. So back to the cameras. The cameras are pretty remarkable. And just to give you an idea of how successful these cameras are, pretty much around us, when I had a meeting with Flock a couple weeks ago, at the time, Macedonia, Hudson, Solon, Bainbridge, Aurora, Orange, Northfield, those are just some of the departments around us who are going to these cameras. One thing nice about these cameras is the cameras that we install will tie into every other Flock camera out there. Not just in the region, but anywhere in the United States. That's nice, but particularly nice is the fact that we can tie into the surrounding communities. So basically what these cameras do, they're tied into NCIC, the National Crime Information Center. These cameras, they hit on somebody that has mostly felony level things, warrants, things like that, any vehicles entering our city. It sends an alert. And what it'll do is it'll send an alert to dispatch. It'll send an alert to the officers in their cars on the mobile data terminals. We can even configure it to, if the officer is out of their car on a call, just checking out something on foot, it would send an alert on their phone. They get pretty creative. So what it'll do is it'll send them an alert that this vehicle just entered the city at this point. But what's really nice about this is we can set the parameters up on these cameras that if there's, you all know what we've been dealing with the last few summers with the groups of, it's primarily kids from the major cities coming into our developments, going through the open cars.
Yeah.
Typically what they do is they use a stolen car. We've had countless cars stolen because people leave their cars unlocked, they leave their keys in the cars or push the start. So these kids, when they steal a car, they hop in it, they test it. If they can start the car, they take the car. So what happens is we get the call later that night, the next morning. Now we enter, the vehicle is stolen. Once that vehicle is entered, if that vehicle enters our city again, or say the vehicle was stolen and stolen the night before, and now they use it to enter Twinsburg, it's going to register that that vehicle just entered Twinsburg.
Wow.
The other nice thing is we can set the parameters for it if there's a certain vehicle we're looking for. Say there was a crime committed in town and all we have is it was a black SUV. You can program in black SUV. It'll hit on every black SUV that has entered your city. At what point? You can get more specific, because if we put in black SUV, there's probably going to be 300 that enter the city today. We can put in black SUV with a luggage rack. It'll hit on black SUV with a luggage rack. Black SUV, luggage rack, bumper stickers. It narrows it down. It gets really specific.
Can you search past
Yes.
data too?
Yes. It'll initially it's set up for 30 days. You can set it up for longer if you want on the storage.
So Chief, like if my car was stolen, okay, it's a white SUV, and you put it in the system, can any other flock city,
Yes.
if it came into this, say it went to Macedonia or
Yes.
Hawthorne or wherever,
Yes.
so those other flock cities could look at theirs, see
Absolutely.
if that came into their community.
Yes.
Would they look by the vehicle or by the license plate?
It'll hit off the plate.
I would tell you what my plate is, and you could, okay.
Yes. It'll hit off the plate. Now, if you have a very unique vehicle, okay, and we feel that maybe they threw another plate on your car, you drive a green Lamborghini with pink wheels or something.
That's my
I can
summer
totally
car.
see that. I totally see it.
You could specify that and search for the vehicle that way.
Okay.
So there's a variety of ways you can search for it. But yes, to answer your question, if they stole your vehicle and it rolled through Macedonia, Macedonia will get a hit that vehicle's in their city.
Got it.
So how do you configure that? Would that be if somebody stole his Lamborghini, do you guys just put something in and then it'll go out and send a text to all the flocks so that everybody immediately knows to look for this?
Once we enter it as stolen, it's entered in the database, the national database.
Okay.
It's already entered, the work's
And then
already
it'll
done.
ding if it comes up for somebody.
Correct, yes, sir.
Any other place.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
The nice thing too, you can get proactive with these. Let's say we have a resident who has a protection order against somebody who's being stalked by somebody. We can put that person's plate in this. So it's not a stolen vehicle, but if that vehicle enters our city, now we know. So if this resident's telling us that their ex they're constantly seeing their car, and every time we respond we just can't find them, we can put that plate into the system. And once
Is that something that we could see, like if we went with the system, that we could see the data that you guys, how successful this is for our city once we use it? As far as like the data, hey,
Like a
we put
metric?
in, like a metric that says, hey guys, we approved this, and last year we installed it, we went a whole year on it, and here's all the things that we were
Yes,
able to do with
absolutely. And I will tell you this, in speaking with Macedonia within, is it the first week? I think they had incidents that related to 2 stolen vehicles entering into their city.
it. It's pretty cool.
Yes, it's a great system. So the beautiful thing about this is I think we can get more bang for the buck. What Chief Noga initially put in for was $32,000 to get the initial camera set up and build upon this. For that same money, we can get a whole lot more area of the city covered. We can do a whole lot more.
And if Macedonia has a camera at our perimeter, right, then you wouldn't maybe have to set one up there. You could set one up
Right.
where there isn't one.
Typically, you'll use it at the entry point to your city, but say 82 going into Macedonia.
That's something, yeah.
Right. If we didn't put one there initially, we may not catch a vehicle
Coming in.
entering our city, but if it's exiting going into Macedonia, they will.
Okay.
And you said each camera is $2,500 per
Correct.
year?
Correct.
So you have a total of 32,000.
Is that the old number?
That
though,
was the
right?
old number from Chief, yeah.
That was the old number.
And I
Yes,
believe
yes.
Chief's wasn't Chief's on premise too? Didn't Chief have some on premise stuff for the cameras?
Yeah,
last
that was for
year?
the-
Was it on premise?
Yeah, the 32, what he was looking at was, I think it was an on-site server and
Yeah.
4 cameras at the
Right.
main intersections.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little different. It's the hosted sort of along the lines of
Right.
what Chrissy was talking about, but it's $2,500 for the camera, and that's it. We're not renting $2,500 per camera per year. We're buying the camera for $2,500, and then if he wants to expand it, we would add more cameras.
I'm sorry, run that by me again. So it's $2,500. We're going to own the cameras?
No, it's
No, I was going to say you pay $2,500 per year for the
yes,
camera. We don't own them.
$2,500 per camera.
okay,
per
I
year.
Yeah, we
Yes,
don't.
yes.
We don't own them.
Right. Again, we don't
Right.
own that, but we don't have to maintain, any
Right.
they're Correct, there's nothing on premise.
Yeah,
We just have the
okay,
cameras
so it's all
out on-
cloud-based. So that brings
Yes.
me to my next question is, what system are we going to be utilizing? Is that going to be a cellular system that hooks up to wirelessly? What wireless system are those cameras going to be hooked up to report back? I mean, how is it going to connect to the city?
Good question. Yeah, I don't know if it's a Wi-Fi based, what they use. If it's, it must be cellular, I would imagine.
I
because of the
would
range.
imagine
I
cellular,
imagine it
too.
would have to be.
But so that's what I was going to say. So the cellular. So I'm just trying to think. $2,500 that we're talking about now is just for the cameras. Does that include, the wireless
Yes.
coverage? Does that include
Yes.
the installation?
Yes.
All the
If the
upgrades.
camera
and
goes
everything?
down, it's
yeah,
the
if the
maintenance.
camera gets down, it's
Cover
replaced.
yes, that includes the warranty.
Okay.
Again, all the storage off-site.
Okay.
The maintenance on the cameras, any type
And
of
it does
service we
in
need.
connectivity as well. So the 2,500 includes the connectivity
Yes,
to
it's all
whatever
inclusive.
wireless or whatever it is.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
And do you guys know, you mentioned solar or electrical, either one works the same? There's
Well,
no
the
difference?
difference, there's a slight difference. The solar won't capture and hold as many images per day. It's a minor difference. Preferred would be the hardwired, but in the event we had to go solar, it's not a bad
So
option.
you're gonna do hardwire probably more, but then where you
Yes.
can add solar.
Yes. Yeah, if we couldn't mount it near a power supply source or up on a pole or
Right.
something, we could do a solar freestanding, absolutely.
And have we already discussed which areas we want to put these in? Like, do we have like a ballpark of how many we want to look at deploying right off the bat? Or do we put in do we select 4 or 5 major intersections, give it a shot for a year and say the $2,500, okay, we did this and they didn't work as well as we thought? Or we're like, that worked out fantastic. We want to add 6 more.
Well, when I met with the representative, initially, we plotted the city, we talked about 10 cameras right off the bat to cover most of our entry points. The other thing is they do have a 60-day period where it's basically like a trial period.
Okay.
And he guaranteed we would see results in 60 days. Obviously, he's good at his job. But, if we didn't, we could pull it. So,
Okay.
yeah, that would be my preference, to cover as much of the entrances of the city as we could, and then go from there.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I got the two systems confused. We're looking at a system to go citywide for our controls throughout the buildings. So like our cameras, our security system, our alarms, and then the door securities, the hit card things. And that system we looked into briefly because they also have these traffic cameras. But that one is a little bit different because it doesn't have the interoperability that he's talking about with the Flock system.
Okay.
So that's my fault.
Oh,
It was a different system because we looked at different options for these
Yeah.
cameras.
Yeah, I figured when you said the 32, I was like, I think that was from last year's system.
Yes, last year, well, it was Chief Noga's capital request that he submitted in July.
Right.
But now we have Chief Mason.
Right.
So it's not necessarily last year's, it's this year's number, but
Sure.
we
Sure.
have.
And basically, we can do a lot more for that figure and possibly a little less.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say even 10 cameras
Yeah.
is only gonna be 25,000,
Yeah.
not 32,000, so. Sounds like a neat system.
Yeah, it's very,
That's very cool.
yeah, it's very unique. Very unique. It's getting really, really popular.
Make sure I'll pass that on to my kids.
Oh, I will let mine know.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we request if you could follow our kids around?
EIB
no.
gets 2 requests.
I got a couple license plates before you leave.
Yeah.
You don't want to put them.
One per child.
Give
No,
you
that's
an,
great.
an example, like the closest license plate reader we have around here isn't even ours. Solon has one in the center of their town that the county owns. So basically, if we have an incident that occurs in town, or we have a plate that we're looking for, we will call them and ask them, has this hit off your reader? And they can tell us, yeah, it was just in our area 2 days ago, but that's about as much as they can do with it.
Yeah, okay.
This is totally different. You cannot narrow down the parameters like you can. You can't get proactive and program theirs
Yeah.
to basically be on the lookout for something like you can with this.
That obviously comes with training because that's pretty intense. There's a lot of cool stuff in there.
There is.
Comes with training to where you can, because I'm going to call you up. We're going to dig into that.
There is. It's when he showed me the page, the site. It's
Yeah.
really
Very cool.
It's really something else. Yeah, it is. It is.
Thank you for answering those.
No problem.
Real quick on that next item, that dispatch console climate control. I am taking that out. That does not meet our capital improvement criteria. It'll just be something that they do under their operating budget. So that's what
Okay.
that little note there is for. And before Chief Mason talks about the K-9 vehicle, I do want to point out that just like last week when we had those specific service department requests, this is another one that's coming from the service department asking that we consider. So they'll be here next week if we have more detailed questions, but Chief Mason can speak a little bit to the K-9 vehicle.
Right, yeah, I think Fred can give you the details, but basically it's an aged vehicle. They don't even make it anymore. It's a Ford Taurus. It's getting near the end of its service life, mileage-wise, maintenance-wise. And again, I'm sure Fred Bissell will expand on it more, but I think it's at a point where we could probably get off the vehicle and do okay as far as auction or
Right,
whatever
it's
else.
what we talked about last week where the service department and we're looking at a more citywide approach to fleet maintenance, and is it more valuable to us to go ahead and sell the vehicle at a certain point, get that money, stop putting in the maintenance costs on that vehicle, and look at the replacement? You know, are we losing money at some point with these vehicles? I mean, to some extent, you're always losing money with vehicles, but we're trying to be better and a little bit more proactive about getting a better value out of those cars.
Yeah, so I think Fred would be the best to go over that. I can tell you it is an older vehicle, high mileage vehicle. We do a good job of maintaining it, but it's nearing the end of its service life. At some point, it's going to be beyond.
Yeah.
And we'll have a list next week of these departmental items that you've seen presented so that they can talk about it, but it's not necessarily under their budget.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief. And next up, we have
Chris.
Chief Morgan.
You want these back?
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thanks.
How you doing, Chief?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
All right. I believe the first slide you have talks about Fire Station 1 improvements.
Yes.
It's something that's been on our radar for a while now. And ultimately it's on the city's radar, the fact that both these buildings are 50 years old. And that's got some 25-year additions on it, but it's just, there are some needs within the structures. Police department has some needs as well, parking lot issues. So we're really starting to look at some fairly sizable projects to get these issues addressed. And it really does potentially go as far as considering whether we abandon this station and build a new one, or do we continue to work with this station? I mean, that all needs to be part of the discussion. That's been talking with Sarah here for a while now, that we really need to get a comprehensive plan put together. So at least moving forward, maybe we can phase the project a little bit at a time, or maybe we get the evaluation that says we need to start over at some point. I don't envision that being the case. I think we have some structures we can work with here, but and maybe that's a little bit of just personal preference, but to bring in a professional organization that knows the ins and the outs of that kind of a process, and coming up with a plan. And it includes a parking space. I know Chief Mason would like some auxiliary covered parking for some of his backup vehicles. So it's really kind of a big plan, and it doesn't need to be all done at one time, but we need a master plan to work by. So as we pick these items off a little bit at a time, over the course of time, we take care of the issues and ultimately have, at some point, get to the structures we want that serve our needs the way we need them to. So I had initially put in $150,000. I've been doing this for several years now, just putting placeholders in there, so we keep talking about it until we come up with a more set plan. So I think that's the extent of the discussion on that point right now. We're discussing whether we go out for an RFP, an RFQ, something like that, just what's the best way to go about that. So probably for next year, probably won't be $150,000. It'll probably be something smaller than that. We just don't know what that's going to be yet.
So the initial request is to come up with would fund coming up with the plan.
Well, so what the initial request, and you may remember, at least Brian, Sharon, from the past couple of years, we've always had these sort of placeholders, Station 1 improvements, and in those 5-year plans, you'd see, it'd start off maybe 200, and then the next year there's $1 million slated and $1 million, there's all these big numbers as placeholders, but as we've been discussing where we really want to go with this sort of multi-year look out when we're looking at these capital things, especially now that we have the dedicated money for safety services, is we really want to figure out what do we actually want to do as opposed to having these placeholders there sitting. There was study might be a strong word, but it was
A feasibility study is what it was.
Right. Looked into years ago, but there was never really the next step of, okay, what pieces, parts of this do we want to do? And so I think where we're at now is, as opposed to these placeholders, really seeing what do we want to do with that building, what the real pricing might be on those needs, because there are true needs over there that need to be addressed. We've got to figure out what they are. And so I think you've got to go out to maybe an engineering firm or an architecture firm and sit down with somebody and really say, we have trouble with our gear room. There's a word.
Turnout gear.
Turnout gear. Room, storage, like that's an issue that we need resolved. How do we resolve that? And let's budget for that. And maybe that's a project we can do, in 2023. But we need to know what actually needs to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we're at, as opposed to this sort of forever placeholder. We want to get to the real meat of it and see what we need to do over there, if that sort of makes sense.
Kind of like you don't.
So this $150,000 initial request was another placeholder, and as we were having our discussions, it's like, hey, let's stop with the placeholder and let's get something real done and see what we really need to do out there, and then plan it out.
If you guys were thinking of getting a new building, would you put it in the same place, or are you looking to?
Boy, that becomes another big discussion.
You guys have to be located at certain spots, right?
There's just the geography of the town, the way it's broken up by 480, and Tinker's Creek, and the way it's divided, it becomes a challenge for where to put that second station. It was the challenge years ago when we did where to put Station 2, and give us improved coverage, but kind of be able to share the load, and all small municipalities start with that one fire station in the middle. And where does it make sense then to put that second one where you get some kind of balance and really, expand your service? And
it's from the middle, everything's equal around it, right?
So it certainly is something. I believe that a third station isn't too far off in the distance as the southern end of town and Twinsburg Township develops. If we stay in that relationship, that might be something that we have to consider as well.
So we've had a lot of development.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this 150 is basically to try to budget to get someone to come in to help figure out what.
I think probably where we'll end up going is an RFP/RFQ, and just look for firms that are available and what they would charge to come up with a comprehensive plan that we can that's actionable, that we can actually do something.
Something that you would compare to say it's going to be worth doing improvements to fix this up, or we need to build a new building. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, essentially that $150,000 request is getting pooled, and we're going to budget for a study, or a review, and take a look at what we already have in that older feasibility study, and then do the next step.
Potentially do some repairs in the year that we're
right. Probably 2022 will be the look at everything year, and then when we come back next summer, I hope by then we would have some idea of here's what we can maybe do in 23.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and then we move to the next page for the rest of our fire department requests. You can see there the first item is payment 3 on a 10-year lease for the engine we just received earlier this summer, and then we'll be paying the third payment on a 3-year financing deal for our life pack monitors. So those we kind of committed to a while ago, so they're still with us another year. Beyond that, the fire prevention vehicle, we have a number of vehicles that were purchased years ago that aren't fitting our needs, and as we change the way we operate, it's just a matter of getting the vehicles that meet those needs. We have a couple of vehicles, speaking to Sarah this morning, that we're not using. So they're on our list of vehicles, but we're not using them. So they're really available, and we'll have to see how we're going to dispose of them or move them to another department or whatever. But we're looking for a utility vehicle that our fire prevention personnel can use, which would include equipment for doing thorough fire inspections, fire safety inspections. So right now we have a car. Well, we want something that can maybe carry a selection of small ladders. Nothing too big. No, we're not a full-size fire truck, but a step ladder, an adjustable ladder, maybe a selection of hand tools. But this same vehicle would also be used for fire investigations, and could be used to by our fire prevention people to haul fire education props to the schools when we're doing work there, to have some portable generators on the truck that are available and committed to for fire prevention purposes, and not something that we're borrowing off other vehicles to accomplish those tasks. So that's the intent of this fire prevention vehicle. Since we haven't had one, I don't know for sure how long that would last, but I would anticipate we would get at least 10 years of service out of that, if not more, just depending on how well the body holds up to Northeast Ohio road salt.
Would it be stored inside or outside?
It would be stored inside. It would be our intention, maybe seasonally, but
So I was going to ask, so when you say that these things that we have don't meet our needs, what you just explained pretty much explains what the needs are and what you're trying to do with that fire prevention vehicle. So I appreciate you outlining that. So if we were to get a vehicle like this, and you said there were other vehicles that aren't being used, would we be using those vehicles to maybe auction and that money go toward?
We'll have that discussion, and
Okay.
we'll talk with Fred, the fleet manager, see if he has a way he can use them otherwise, but
Because if we can redistribute those funds to help us get
at
that
this point,
prevention,
I have
it sounds
my
like a
staff.
good vehicle.
Yeah, I have my staff going out to start them once in a while to make sure they will start,
Yeah.
but otherwise they're out there
Right.
paint fading in the sunshine,
Right.
so I certainly we could better use for them.
Sure. Okay.
Would you be looking to purchase that or lease it?
This would probably be a purchase.
Outright
I think
purchase.
that would make the most sense. The next item is furniture for stations 1 and 2. This is something we've done piecemeal over the years, and it's one that cities are frequently kind of hesitant to bring up, but it is part of what we do. And the big part of this would be beds and recliners.
I'm sorry, beds and what?
Beds and
Oh, recliners,
recliners
yeah, okay.
would be a part of that. There's also some office furniture that we need to replace. But we've got 12 beds we maintain between the two stations. I'm sorry, 11 beds, and then I think 10 recliners. And we want our people to be well rested and refreshed when they have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
And so these beds have been currently, I think, we're on 5 years, I think, with these current set of mattresses. And we're actually looking to go to Sleep Number beds. They have a special deal for fire service, and that makes the beds adjustable for the individual so they can be comfortable. And, we've got almost 40 staff over there, and there's 40 different sleeping preferences. So whether it's dark or light or soft or firm or cold or warm, all those preferences come into play. So hopefully we can help address that. And again, there's enough here at this point. It was thought that instead of onesies and twosies, we just do the whole package, and by definition, it meets that capital improvement threshold. So that's the way we're looking at this point.
And their shifts are how long, like how long?
They're
are they?
24-hour shifts.
So, I mean, they need to rest.
Yeah.
So-
We want them to get good rest when they have the opportunity.
Is it 24 on,
24 on, 48
48 off?
off. Yes.
Okay. Yep, that's important.
The next unit, the next item is a med unit. We currently have 4 med units, and the one we are looking to get rid of is a 2006. And that's even questionable right now because we're having a whole lot of problem with a 2013 unit that we just replaced an engine on, and it's still not operating well. But our intent is to replace the 2006 unit, and that $60,000 is an estimate at the 5-year financing cost. I think it'll come down from there, but we're trying to get at least 10 years out of these med units. We've actually, again, since this is a 2006, we've pushed it to 15 years, and we're starting to reap the hazards of pushing those. So we're hoping that probably the following year we'll have another med unit on the list as well to modernize our med unit fleet a little bit.
And
What is the med unit? Is that
The ambulance.
the ambulance?
And the service department requested this med unit as well. So both the fire department and the service department are asking for a med unit to be replaced. Just to point that out.
Yeah.
So you might hear about that. Just one med unit, but 2 departments asking.
Oh,
please,
gotcha.
please
do
Okay.
something.
this.
1 unit, 2 people asking.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there, and you'll see that on the Chief 1 vehicle as well. The fire department
up on you.
requested it, and so did the service department.
What's that?
They're ganging up on you.
Yeah, they are. Come
You're gonna
out.
keep getting
All
it on
directions.
everybody's sheet until you
Yeah.
say yes.
But it's nice to see when they align. Like everybody agrees that we need to do something, so.
The next item is a copier. The one we have is just getting beat up and used quite a bit. And it's got a funky lease agreement thing that goes with it that is kind of expensive. So we're hoping to get out of that situation.
Do you know who holds the lease for that?
Are you guys, is that
As
one
many
of the
times
ones
as I
under
see the
ComDoc?
ComDoc, yes.
Conduct. Okay.
Yes.
So that copier though lines up with the 2 departments that I don't have coming to CIB. So the one over for administration and the one in building department. Yes. Because that was their only request, so I didn't have them coming. But
So they're negotiated separately then, the copiers? They're not like a collective?
no, our IT person, Zach, has been working with the copier folks and he'll let them know, okay, we need 3 and hopefully they give us a little better deal.
And you would not lease this new one, you want to buy it?
I think that's my understanding.
We buy the copier and then there's the like maintenance agreement that goes along with them.
In this case, we do what IT tells us to do.
Yeah.
So,
That's a good idea.
You just put it under your,
yeah, yes. The next item is a boat and some related equipment, some water rescue equipment.
That's what the picture is of.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
picture. So we do have a boat. We purchased it in, double checking here to make sure I get the right date. Oh, we purchased that in 2004. So it served us well, but it is an inflatable rubber boat. We are having some places where it's starting to delaminate a little bit and separate, so we're getting a little bit of leakage, and which isn't so bad it would be catastrophic, but it's just a sign of things to come. We feel it's important that we have enough exposure to water hazards here in the city that we want to be prepared to react to something that might occur there.
How often is that used?
Well, I was just leading to that. We don't use it a lot,
Okay.
but I would rather have to explain why we have it and aren't using it instead of why we needed it and didn't have it.
Now, if you were to get this one, would you keep this old one and
No, that
just
would
add a new one?
It would probably go to auction.
Okay.
and it would get sucked up in a heartbeat. I'm not sure we get a lot of money out of it, but
Right.
I'll tell you, the gov deals and now that we're doing better about this, getting, I don't want to say getting rid of, but offering up for sale some of this older equipment. I mean, because of the way the market is right now for used vehicles, I can't, it's nuts, the money that he's getting for stuff that I would have thought would go for scrap. I'll be like, oh, somebody will give us $300 and people are paying $2-3 grand.
You can't find a new one.
Right. No.
And then the last item there is a replacement vehicle for what I drive. It's a 2007 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's gonna break 100,000 miles before the year's over here, and it's starting to look like it's a Northeast Ohio car. I've been trying to push it off because we've had some other priorities, but it's about that time. So I'd like to see a replacement there. And again, this is one that does service department would like to see replaced as well. The holes are getting bigger, so there's no stopping that.
Do you drive that every day? Is that
Yes,
the vehicle
yes.
you drive every day?
Yes.
Any other questions for Chief Morgan?
No questions.
I think I'm good. I appreciate it, Chief. Thanks.
And just, I guess, a quick note, coming attractions. We just bought this engine. It's on a 10-year lease. Not next year will be in 23. We're looking to replace one of our ladder trucks. So that's going to be another 10-year, probably a 10-year lease this time around. We're hoping that eventually that the capital fund, we can build some money up in there so we get to a point where we're purchasing outright again instead of the financing costs of leasing and stuff like that. So, but that's on the horizon, and it's probably a better than $1 million purchase. And we have 2 of them. The second one will probably wait a couple more years and try to get those 2 older vehicles cycled out. And they should be a 20-year vehicle. The 2 we have now are at 21 years this year. So we're stretching them a little bit, but just on the horizon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
So your last sheet of your packet is just a little bit of information that you guys had requested last week to know where the money comes from that pays for the different things in those funds. So the requests you heard tonight are from that police and fire levy fund, and that's that new property tax levy is how we would pay for these items. It's not
Okay.
necessarily the only money that we would put towards safety service capital.
Right.
But I think for next year, we'll probably be able to make it under that
Yeah,
number.
so what we're basically doing is looking to try to use the tax levy stuff as much as we can, right?
Right, certainly, that's what it's there for, and it's slated for safety
And even
capital.
bank some for future,
Right.
Or a
the-
ladder truck or something like that.
yeah, some other requests.
Yeah, the ladder truck, I think is, I don't know, in other communities, I've seen them like 1.25 or so that would be almost 2 full years of the property taxes just to pay for one thing, so it'll probably be payments over time.
Yeah.
It will be payments over time.
Yeah. Thank you for this, Sarah. This is good.
No problem. They do the hard part.
All right. Any other miscellaneous items?
No, not that I can recall.
No? Okay. No miscellaneous items. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Sharon, motion.
Second.
Second by Shelley. Meeting adjourned.